Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hiltwine, and I'm the Senior R&D Specialist here at CIT. Please bear with me today. I am trying to get over one of nasty cold here this January, so I hope that everyone is able to hear and understand me. We'll go through the session, and then certainly if you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity today to talk with you about the CRCF FY2017 application process. I'll go through the components of the online application. I'll cover tips for preparing strong proposals and highlight some common pitfalls to avoid or to pay close attention to when completing your application. We'll wrap up the session with an opportunity for some Q&A. Today's presentation does not cover CRCF project budgets and matching funds, but I hope that you'll consider joining me tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. for a session that will target those topics. Before we get started, if this is your first time participating in a CRCF webinar, all participants have been placed on mute to avoid any background noise or feedback. Questions may be submitted at any time during or following the presentation by expanding your webinar control panel and typing your question into the questions feature. This session, as with all CRCF webinars, is being recorded. The slides will be available by close of business today, and the recording will be available by the end of the day on Wednesday. Once available, both can be accessed from the solicitation landing page on CIT's website. The goal of CRCF is to fund high-potential technologies from Commonwealth organizations to spur economic development across the state. We are currently in our 8th round and to date have announced 232 awards totaling almost $20 million. For FY17, $2.8 million is available to award to academia, the private sector, federal labs, and other research organizations. There is not a predetermined number of awards for these monies, nor is there a predetermined cap or expected number or dollar of awards for any industry or organization type. I won't spend time this afternoon discussing the 5 programs, but you are welcome to take a few minutes to check out the solicitation overview slides or the recording, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have during the Q&A portion of today's presentation. Here's a quick snapshot of key dates for FY17. However, the most important date at this juncture is the next Thursday's application deadline. All applications must be submitted online no later than noon on Thursday, January the 19th to be considered this round. Late submissions will not be accepted. Award announcements are planned for early June. Project work in FY17 must align with one of 7 primary industry sectors, which you selected in your LOI. This field will be non-modifiable in your application. However, you will also have the option to select a secondary industry sector from an expanded list of industry priorities. Including those on your screen, you can also identify alignment with aerospace, communications, nuclear physics, or transportation. We do ask that you do not select the same industry sector for both the primary and secondary selections. If your project aligns with only one tech sector, leave the field for secondary industry sector blank. All materials that you will need to submit an FY17 application can be found online from the solicitation landing page, which is the URL on your screen. From this, you'll find general resources to aid you in the process, such as FAQ and these webinars. However, the majority of the materials that you will need can be accessed by clicking on the hyperlink to the CRCF program your LOI was approved under. From these program pages, you'll find the guidelines, proposal and budget templates, and a sample application. As with the letter of intent, applications must be completed and submitted online. Hard copies or soft copies attached via email will not be accepted. So how do you access your application? First, although there was a lot of information on the CIT and CRCF web pages that we just discussed, a link to submit your application is not one of them. Because applicants must be invited to submit an application, the link to do so can only be found within your automatic acceptance email sent from crcf@cit.org in November. The subject line for that email is Instructions for Submitting CRCF FY2017 Applications. Applicants received one email for each project that was approved. This is particularly important if you may have projects under 2 different programs. When you're ready to begin working on your application, click on the unique link at the bottom. When you click on that hyperlink, you'll be brought to a login page. Please enter the username and password associated with your account and the LOI that you submitted. If you've forgotten your password, you may click on the Forgot Your Password link to retrieve your information. Many of our applicants are affiliated with multiple organizations, such as a university and a company. If this is you, you'll next see a screen asking you to select the organization that's connected to the application you are completing. If you are affiliated with only one organization that has sought CRCF funding, you will not see this screen at all. After logging in, you'll be brought to a welcome page. Scroll to the bottom under the Pending Applications section. You'll see a blue Revise hyperlink next to the project title you'll submit. Click that Revise link to access the online questionnaire. I'll take this opportunity while we have the screenshot to note that you can start but not have to submit an application. For instance, in my first 2 test projects on this list, you can see that I started the application and entered a request amount. As long as you see a Revise link next to a project, you can work on and submit that application up until the deadline. Once you click on the Revise link, you'll start the questionnaire, beginning with the organization section. This information should match what you submitted in your LOI, and if you had the option to select an organization at the login screen, the organization that you selected at that time. Always click Save and Proceed to move to the next screen. You can go back or forward to a section by clicking on the hyperlinked breadcrumbs. Enter information on the applicant organization's authorized representative. Remember, this is an individual who is authorized to execute legal documents on behalf of the applicant organization. In the case of a college or university submission, the authorized representative is an individual from the Office of Research, Office of Sponsored Programs, or similar office. The principal investigator or department chair would not be accepted as the AR. I'd like to draw your attention to the principal investigator section. If the authorized representative and the principal investigator are the same individual, particularly for our small business applicants where this is common, you can indicate this by selecting Yes at this question and proceed to the next section. If the AR and the PI are not the same person, select No for this question, and then you'll complete the fields that appear on your screen before proceeding. The next section of the questionnaire pertains to project information. Here's where you'll indicate the amount of funds requested, the project match, its period of performance, and where you'll upload your proposal, budget, and appendix documents. You'll notice certain fields are not modifiable, such as the CIT reference number, program type, project title, and primary industry sector. If there is something incorrect with any of this information, please let the CIT team know right away. The CIT reference number is a unique number assigned to your project at the time that your LOI was converted into a program application. It's a number that begins with the program type, such as CP, ER, MF, SBIR, or STTR, and is then followed by the number 17. The CIT reference number is different than the 8-digit request ID number that was used to identify your LOI. While that number is still connected to your submission in the online portal, it's now the CIT reference number that we will use to identify and refer to your project moving forward. As you'll be instructed in the guidelines, this is the number that should be used in the file name for all uploaded documents. To upload the documents, click on the Upload File button. A small pop-up window will appear that allows you to choose a file. Click on that button. Once you select the file, you'll see it appear in black text next to the Choose File button. Click on Upload File. Give the system just a second, and you'll see your file become a blue hyperlink. You can now click the Close Window button. Back on the main questionnaire page, you'll see your document appear next to that field. The last screen you'll come to is the certification page. By proceeding and submitting your application, you are certifying compliance with eligibility and other criteria outlined in the program guidelines. Prior to submitting your application, you'll have the ability to save or move forward with submitting your application. Applications may be worked on and modified until they are submitted, but once submitted, modifications are no longer possible. Once you submit, a confirmation will appear on your screen and an automatically generated email will be sent to you confirming receipt by CIT. Don't panic if that email is not instantaneous, as it can often take up to an hour, especially during busy times. However, if you don't receive the notification, please contact the CRCF team. Remember that you must hit the Submit button by noon on January the 19th. The system will close down at that time, so applications that are in progress but not submitted will not be accepted. All applications are similar, but there are some differences depending on the program. The particular example that we just walked through was for the commercialization program. Sample program applications are available to download from CIT's website. These documents are in PDF format and are meant to give example of the questions you'll find in the online form. Importantly, so I want to call this out first and foremost, each program has specific templates for the proposal and the budget. To download these, visit the program pages on CIT's website that we've been talking about a couple of times now, and go to the document widget on the top right. Please use these current templates. If you're familiar with CRCF and prepared an application during a prior round, don't resubmit the materials as they were prepared before. Changes are made each year to the templates, and we expect submissions in FY17 to use the FY17 templates. Submissions that do not use the correct templates, program, or the round may not be accepted. Each proposal template requires 2 to 3 sections, depending on the program. In the template, you'll find headings for the technical discussion and strategic plan, and for the SBIR and STTR applicants, also a commercialization plan. The guidelines lay out the content that should be included in your application. We've laid out this information in a format that hopefully you'll be able to use as an outline for your submission. We want to make this as easy and straightforward as possible. I'll take you through the template itself in just a few minutes. Once you've completed the proposal, it should be uploaded as a PDF document. Please note that the system will not accept uploads bigger than 5 megabytes. The budget template has 2 tabs, and both tabs must be completed. Tomorrow's budget-specific webinar will walk you through that process and the information sought. If your project will run longer than a year, email my team for a multi-year template. The appendix is the last component required for all applicants, but there is not a template for this section. Required content does vary by program. Again, refer to the guidelines for what information should be included, such as the letter from the authorized representative, which is required for all, letters of support, which are optional, CVs, or a bibliography or references, if you wish to include one. Additional materials not called out here or in the guidelines may be provided up to the appendix page cap. All appendices must be within the allowable page limits. Information that may be included but falls outside the limit will not be reviewed. It is acceptable to combine information into a single page, such as multiple letters of support, if space is an issue for you, provided that all information continues to be legible. Applicants under the SBIR and STTR matching funds programs must also provide their official notice of award for their Phase 1 or 2 project. If you're providing the contract, we only need the signed first page. In the case that you are applying to CRCF with a federal proposal submitted but pending award decision, or for a deadline not later than January 31st, 2017, we request that you upload into this field a PDF document that includes the submission deadline, sponsoring agency, whether the proposal is a Phase 1 or 2, the project title, and the estimated date of award. If you are providing a screenshot of the submission, ensure that the information is legible. Should a CRCF award be recommended for funding in June, funding is contingent upon receipt of the federal award. If you learn the status of your submission at any time during the application review process, CIT should be notified within 2 business days. Here is a screenshot of a commercialization program proposal template. As I've mentioned, templates do vary by program, so you'll need to download and use the one specific to the program that you're submitting under. On the template, you'll see prompts to enter text here. Click in that space and either type or paste content. The top section, which mimics information requested in the online questionnaire, is also required here. Please ensure that information is the same in all places. Also, don't delete this section or leave it blank. Suggestions for page limits for each section of the proposal are found within the guidelines. While the proposal itself may not exceed a certain number of pages, how you allot space is up to you. Just make sure that you include all of the required content. A note, the maximum allowed pages is exclusive of the top section of information. So if you're looking at page numbers, information that may extend to the top of a final page is allowed. Additionally, a page break has been included between the technical discussion and strategic plan, and for the SBIR and STTR templates, also between the strategic plan and commercialization plan. It is okay for these sections to start on a clean and separate page of the template without penalty. All uploaded materials should be in final form without track changes or internal comments. Proposals should be uploaded into the online form in PDF format. The uploaded material should be saved with the nomenclature described in the guidelines. CRCF seek applicants with a clear idea of an unmet need or opportunity. Your technology should exhibit strong potential to benefit the Commonwealth economically. Applicants need to have thought through and have a realistic picture of the CRCF project and a commercialization strategy, such as when will commercialization take place and what will it take to get there. CRCF projects should be ones where $50,000 or $100,000 in funding will be meaningful to advance the technology to the point where it would be attractive for larger scale public or private funding. As you are thinking through some of these pointers, I'll also provide additional tips to consider as you're preparing your application and your proposal. Above all, we understand the effort that goes into a submission and the potential value of receiving CRCF funding. Therefore, we want to provide you with as many resources and advice as possible to craft strong and impactful submissions. However, please note that these tips are not a guarantee for a CRCF award, but are only meant to aid you in preparing your most successful submission. Sample proposals or winning proposals are not made available. We've split this year's tips into 4 categories, and I'll go through a list of pointers under each. If additional clarification would be helpful, I'd be glad to address those in greater detail during the Q&A. The approach to your CRCF application. The focus should be on the CRCF work. You should demonstrate why CRCF funding is critical. Project the economic benefits to Virginia. This could be at a high level, and demonstrate that you are thinking through to commercialization and beyond. Discuss your plans for commercialization. Remember that CRCF is not a major equipment acquisition program. Demonstrate the foundation for making a claim on the market opportunity. Highlight the competitive advantage of the proposed solution and market penetration strategies. Present a thought-through proposal with a logical, realistic work plan. This should include appropriate team and partners to accomplish goals, and you should discuss plans to secure and protect IP. The strength of the team is evaluated during the CRCF review process, and CVs are requested as part of your appendix. Executed IP agreements are required before awarded funds can be dispersed in dual or multi-party projects. These must be durable enough to satisfy commercialization, so you should be thinking through the plan and timing of such a requirement. Content and formatting. Refer to the program guidelines for content and formatting direction. Use the program-specific templates from the current, the FY2017 round. Write clearly. Use your space wisely and consider the value of images and/or graphs, the size of text, and the amount of background information that you're providing. Maximize the allowable page count. The proposed project ought to be realistic. That means the work plan, what you're able to accomplish, the timeline, how long it will take to complete the project and then to commercialize, and the funding, what it will take to get to market. Your detailed work plan is a critical component of your proposal. Again, CRCF is seeking a thought-out approach to how the project will be completed and how the funds will be used. You should include tasks and activities, subtasks, and measurable milestones that demonstrate the project is on task. A graphic timeline is a required element for all applications, and this should align with your work plan. Your graphic timeline should depict tasks, subtasks, and milestones, when they will occur against the project's period of performance, and a quick Google search will give you examples of these Gantt charts or other graphic timelines. A sound evaluation plan is also required. This should be an overview of the criteria that describes performance measures for determining whether the project objectives and milestones have been met, the criteria that defines long-term project success, and how project execution will be managed. The discussion of your evaluation plan should go beyond identifying the frequency of meetings and the software that may be used for the process. Consistency and accuracy. Make sure the budget correlates to application materials. Make sure that the information keyed into the online questionnaire is also consistent with the information requested at the top of the proposal document and on the budget. CIT runs reports from the data that's entered into your online questionnaire. It's important and very helpful to us that this information is correct as possible, so we ask that you pay close attention before submitting. Finally, resubmissions, follow-on submissions, and complementary submissions. For resubmissions, you should show the work that has been done in the interim since your previous submission. You should address the concerns raised by reviewers of your non-funded CRCF application. For follow-on submissions, briefly highlight how CRCF funds have helped you to achieve particular outcomes in your prior project, and then how new funding will continue to advance the technology toward commercialization. For complementary submissions during the same round, make sure that you reference your other application and include how they may complement each other toward fulfilling the overall goal. We ask that you don't submit each one in a silo unless they are completely different projects. If overlap does exist between the requested funds or efforts in your complementary submissions, briefly address that if both are funded, or if only one is funded, what may be needed to adjust in the work plan or in the budget. This year we thought that it may also be helpful to call out some common pitfalls or things to avoid in your application. As you'll see at the top of the slide, in the program guidelines and FAQs, and even in your instruction email, applications that do not comply with the guidelines will not proceed past initial review. CIT will not reach out to applicants for clarification or to request additional information. So, what have we seen that you should pay particular attention to or avoid? First, provide the appropriate amount of detail for an understanding of the work. Not too much, not too little, but just the right amount. Pay attention to those required elements. Omitting can result in your application not moving forward. For example, if you leave out a detailed work plan, a graphic timeline, or don't provide the number of CVs. Caps do exist on some budget categories. Pay particular attention to your direct cost versus your indirect cost ratio, the work being conducted by your applicant or by your subs. Pay attention to the evaluation plan content. We talked about that a moment ago about what makes your project successful. Discuss the economic development potential for Virginia. This is a state-sponsored program and we are looking for those results here in the Commonwealth. Make sure you communicate what the potential is for this technology and for your project here in the Commonwealth. Lastly, make sure that you're not submitting a sloppy application. Now that you've submitted your application on January the 19th, What happens during those 5.5 months before awards are announced? Once submitted, all applications go through an administrative compliance review conducted by CIT. Applications that are eligible will advance to subject matter experts, or SMEs, who review projects for their technical merit and commercialization potential. They also rank those submissions. Projects recommended to advance will go to the legislatively appointed Research and Technology Investment Advisory Committee, or the RTAC. The 10-member RTAC reviews those applications and makes award decisions to the CIT Board of Directors, who makes the final award decisions. For this solicitation, award announcements are planned for early June 2017. As I've mentioned, CIT provides many resources to aid you in the application process. Complete information on the FY17 solicitation is available via the URL on your screen, which should look familiar by now. From here, you'll find the webinars, registration links, or the slides and recordings from sessions that have already been hosted, FAQs, and sample materials. You'll also find the links to the program pages where you can access those critical guidelines and templates. If you have questions throughout the solicitation not addressed by the available materials, please reach out to my team at crcf@cit.org. We are available during business hours Monday through Friday and look forward to working with you. This concludes the prepared portion of the webinar. I'd now like to invite any questions that you may have at this time. Again, questions can be submitted by expanding your webinar control panel and using the questions feature. I'll address all questions in the order they come in as best as possible for the benefit of all participants. If a question requires more information, I'll follow up with that individually separately at the conclusion of the session. So the first question is, for CIT's review of the team, we are requesting resumes. Would a printout of a LinkedIn profile be acceptable instead? So a LinkedIn profile would be acceptable. We really are looking for a complete CV or a resume that shows your experience. So if all of that is captured within your LinkedIn profile and you're providing a copy of that, that would certainly work. CVs should be a maximum of 2 pages. The next question is whether there'll be a script of what today's presentation was about. There will not be a script that will be available. However, the slides themselves will be accessible from CIT's website by the end of today, and then a recording of the session that you can access will be available by close of business on Wednesday. So we have a great question here about complementary submissions, and for this particular individual is working on both an SBIR matching funds application and a commercialization application based on the same technology. So the question is whether it's okay if some of the sections, such as the market need and opportunity, technology background, applicant and team, some of those things are identical in the 2 applications, and the answer is yes. So certainly there is going to be some overlapping content between complementary submissions that makes sense. The details about the team, if in fact they are the same people involved in both programs or both projects, are the same, then it makes sense to be able to utilize the same information. Where we would be looking for the differences or the additional detail is in the specific work. So each of the projects should have a distinct work plan and distinct goals that you're trying to accomplish. So when it comes to sort of the meat of your proposal, where you're really talking about the project that you'll be undertaking, those steps, those activities that you'll be doing to accomplish the goals, that's where we should see the difference. In some of those other sections where the information is going to be consistent between the 2, by all means feel free to use the same information. Are you available for one-to-one review of applications prior to submissions? We are not, so we would be glad to address any specific questions that you have, but our team is not available to review proposals prior to the submission deadline. Are reviewer comments or criticisms of the application provided to the applicants? They are. So at the end of each solicitation, when awards are announced, everyone receives a letter. For those who were not awarded funding through CRCF, we do provide specific feedback, whether it be administratively, things that you can do to improve your application, or feedback from the subject matter experts or others as your proposal advance through the evaluation process. So our goal is to help you not only to strengthen your submission for another round if you choose to resubmit, but also to give you some good feedback as you think about your technology, people to be in contact with, other programs that you may consider. So we try to provide as much detailed information and constructive criticism as we can to aid you if your project is not selected. So we have a question about the Eminent Researcher Recruitment Program and the matching funds requirement. So under our Eminent Researcher Recruitment Program, which is available to our public universities only, there is a matching component, and that is one-to-one. The caveat here with that match is that 50% of that match must come from the private sector partner involved in that recruitment project. And I would certainly be happy to talk with you more offline if you have some specific eminent researcher questions. We also have another one about eminent researcher recruitment in terms of more than one partner be included. Yes, that is certainly acceptable. How much award would be considered for purchasing materials or tools for commercialization applications? So if you are needing materials or supplies to complete your CRCF project, those are considered direct costs, and direct costs are reviewed quite favorably. There is not a cap on the amount of materials or supplies that you can request under CRCF, but in your budget narrative, and this is going to be true for any of the categories that you're requesting funding, we do ask you to describe what those materials are, how they're used to advance the project, and really that role so that we have a good understanding and you provide a good justification of that request. But you would be able to request from CRCF what you would need to conduct that project. Let's see, we have a question about indirect costs and whether those are allowed. And yes, indirect costs are allowed both from the CRCF and the matching funds, the CRCF request, excuse me, and the matching funds. There is a cap on the amount of indirect costs that can be requested. It depends on the program. For our private sector programs, there is a 10% cap on the amount of indirect costs. And for the matching funds program, there is a 30% cap, and our eminent researcher recruitment program, there's a 12% cap. I encourage you to double check those guidelines to make sure. So you can request the support from CRCF up to that maximum amount. And I'll note here, and I'll talk about it during tomorrow's webinar as well, I definitely encourage you to participate then. Direct costs are reviewed more favorably. So you are certainly welcome to request from CRCF up to that maximum amount and provide matching funds from indirect costs. But as we're looking at proposals, the direct cost requests are reviewed more favorably. CRCF does not have an indirect cost rate, however. So for example, if you are a matching funds applicant with a $100,000 CRCF request, you can request up to $30,000 in indirect cost support, and you would explain there just what those costs may be. It could be things like office supplies, the lighting that takes to run your labs and things like that, costs that could be associated with multiple projects and not just directed towards CRCF. So again, a question about the eminent researcher recruitment. What happens if an award for the eminent researcher recruitment is made but the search fails? So our eminent researcher recruitment program, I certainly encourage you to take a look at the guidelines. You don't have to have a person in mind necessarily who will be recruited. This program can support multiple stages of that recruitment process. It could be that a candidate is identified but not yet the process hasn't yet started. It could be that there's multiple candidates under consideration and you would be choosing from one of those individuals, or it could be that there's a particular person that you're seeking and CRCF funds may be able to come in and help set up a lab and other support along those lines, startup package support and such. In the case that a proposed researcher who's in your proposal maybe doesn't accept your offer for employment, we would be able to work with you in terms of finding an alternate, and that would really be on an individual basis. So I recommend that if you have some of those specific questions about that program, I'd be happy to talk with you online. If you want to send an email to crcf@cit.org, then we can talk about some of those specific examples. So if you have IP that is being contributed to a project, can that be counted towards matching funds? So the IP itself would not be the matching funds, but certainly if you were working with a law firm, for example, to protect that IP, those costs could be provided towards the matching component for the CRCF award or the project. These are some great questions coming in today, and I'll note that as things come up, you're starting to work more in your applications and prepare your proposals and budgets. As you start going through, please note that that email address that I just called out, crcf@cit.org, is going to be a great resource as those questions come to mind. We know that they might not always be during these presentations and during these sessions, but we're here to help support you throughout that process. And as we get closer to that submission deadline, please be a little patient. We tend to see more questions, as you can imagine, during that time. So we may not have as quick of a response as we do during other times, but just bear with us, and we look forward to being able to help you with your proposals. Okay, well, I haven't seen any more questions come through in the last 5 minutes or so, so I'm going to go ahead and call the session to a close. I do really appreciate everyone bearing with me through the raspy voice and through today's cold, so thank you very much. Again, if your question was not addressed as much as you hoped it would be, or if you have follow-on questions, please reach out to the team and let us know. And we certainly appreciate your participation today and look forward to receiving those applications here next week. So thanks again, everybody. I wish you a happy new year, and thanks again for participating. Bye-bye.